Claudia, you know your data. Very impressive. I think I'm going to go back to Washington, D.C. Very excited to be here, everyone. Claudia is actually very right. The country is changing and changing dramatically, demographically, and largely because of the Hispanic population. So my name is Roberto Ramirez, and I work in Population Division at the Census Bureau in Washington, D.C. I'm very excited to be here today at the Hispanic Leadership Summit to present Hispanic origin data from the 2020 census. Truthfully, I'm very glad to be back in my home state. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and it's also great to be in front of a live audience. This is just my second public engagement in 2 years, so hopefully I'm not too nervous. Since the Census Bureau lifted our travel ban, and so I got the band back together and going back on tour. So I have a lot of information to share with you today, probably perhaps too much. I know I can't go over like Claudia did, so I'm on a tight 10 minutes, so please bear with me. Hopefully I'm not going too fast, I'll try to slow down, but I'll promise you this. I'm gonna be available here all day today. If you have any questions, anything you'd like to follow up, I'll be here until 8 o'clock tonight, whatever you like, okay? All right, so without further ado, let's get started. So the 2020 census data I'm about to present comes from American Count Stories shown here on the slide. It's available on our website at www.census.gov. The 2020 data provide a new snapshot of the racial and ethnic composition and the racial and ethnic diversity of our nation. This story provides a new snapshot of our nation's population and how interconnected we all are. So to begin, I will briefly just discuss the U.S. Management and Budgets, or OMB, 1997 standards for race ethnicity collection. Contrary to popular belief, the Census Bureau does not set the standards for collection of ethnicity and race for the federal government. Our research helps inform them, but we not develop them. All federal statistical agencies, including the Census Bureau, must adhere to these standards. The minimum OMB categories for data for race and ethnicity for federal statistics and civil rights compliance are defined as follows. As you can see here, Hispanic or Latino, non-Hispanic or Latino, and the major OMB race categories: American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander, and white. I'm just here to talk to you about the Latino population today. Otherwise, we would be here till midnight if I talked about all the other race categories, as you can imagine. So Claudia talked about, how diverse the Latino population is, and she's absolutely right. This slide shows an image of the Hispanic origin question that was used in the actual census in 2020 census. The 2020 census, as in previous censuses, the category Hispanic or Latino includes all individuals who identify with one or the more nationalities or ethnic groups originating from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Central and South America, and other Spanish cultures, as well as people who provide written responses in the other Latino or Spanish write-in areas. So that includes, for example, folks that are Salvadorian, Dominican, Colombian. How many people are from any of these? Guatemala, any Guatemaltecos here? Anybody from Honduras, Ecuador? So you can see here Venezuela, so you can see that we have an individual write-in. So if you don't see yourself in one of the boxes here, you can write your actual nationality or ethnicity in, and we capture that. For most Americans in the United States, they'll check the first box because the vast majority of the country is non-Hispanic. Okay, so get ready. Now we're going to talk about a lot of data. So I'm going to walk you through it, and you're going to learn a lot, I promise. Okay, so here we begin presenting the results for the 2020 census. We counted 331 million people in 2020 census. You can see here under the 2020 column. That's the total U.S. population. This table shows the U.S. population by Hispanic origin Latino between the 2010 census and the 2020 census. The Hispanic or Latino grew from 50.5 million, about 16.3% of the U.S. population in 2010, to 62.1 million, about 19% in 2020. As you can see, highlighted by the red box. Between 2010 and 2020, the Hispanic population grew by 23%. As you can go all the way to the right-hand side of the table, you can see the growth. And you can see the corresponding change for the total population, which was about 7.4%. Slightly more than half of the total US growth between 2010 and 2020 came from the growth of the Latino population. Let me highlight that for you. See the different column there? See 22.7 million? 11.6 million is what the Hispanics contributed to that total, over a little bit slightly than half. Tremendous, tremendous growth. This is the same information in the previous slide. It's just in graphical form for those of you that like graphs like I do. And so I wanted to show it to you. 2010, same corresponding numbers, and the 2020 results as well. Let's see how we're doing on time. So far, so good. Okay. So we also talked about the youth, you know, Latinos being a very young population, and absolutely right. This table actually looks at the population under 18 years old, what we usually consider the child population, and then the percent of the population is 18 years and over. You know, the racial and ethnic composition among children is quite different from adults. This comparison offers insights into the demographics of the younger generations in this country and a glimpse of what the future may bring. The Hispanic origin population under 18 and over on the right-hand side of the table went from 14.2% in 2010 to 16.8% in 2020. And the Hispanic child population under 18, right, under 18 years and over, 17 and under is a better way to say it. On the left-hand side of the table went from 23.1% in 2010 to 25.7% in 2020. So fast-growing population. And I have some projections slides too, so you'll see what the future looks like given the current birth rates that we're having among this population. You know, on the other hand, the white alone population under 18 and over went from 74.7% in 2010 to 64.1% in 2020. In contrast, the multiracial population increased from 2.1% in 2010 to 8.8% in 2020. As you can see at the very bottom of this table right here, 2 or more races. In other words, the country is becoming multiracial and Latino. True story. Okay. And just for illustration purposes and just for the interest of time, this is the same information I presented in the previous, but in graphical form. And again, you can see, if you can focus on the red box here, you can see the percentages on the left-hand side, percent of the population under 18, and the percent of the population over 18 on the right-hand side. Like I said, I'm more than happy to meet with you afterwards and talk to you a little bit more about this data. Okay, so let's talk about what's happening in the country. So this slide shows you the 2020 total Hispanic population by state compared to the 2010 census. The light blue bars show the 2010 census, and the dark blue bars represent the 2020 census. The Hispanic population grew numerically in all 50 states, and of course, and also in the District of Columbia, DC. Texas, California, and Florida showed the largest Hispanic numeric increase. Each of these states added over 1 million people of Hispanic origin in the last decade. Texas, nearly 2 million. California, 1.6 million. And Florida, 1.5 million. That's why the state of Texas actually received a number more congressional representatives, right? Because of population growth. If you don't know how we distribute power in our country, know this. We distribute power based on total population. It's enshrined in our Constitution. This is why we do a census every 10 years. We started doing in 1790, we've done a census every year. Latinos are driving that change. Okay. I told you I like graphs, right? So let's get ready. Using our data visualizations at census.gov. By the way, if you have not been to our website, you got to do it. www.census.gov. You can actually explore data further, and all the information I'm presenting to you today is actually available for free on our website. Our data visualization, race and ethnicity in the United States, presents racial and ethnic composition and more information on the population size of each racial and ethnic group and the percent change in 2010 and 2020. I'm just going to walk you through these real quickly. So today's illustration will focus on the Hispanic portion of the slides. So here's a screenshot of the Hispanic population in the United States by state from the data visualization. As you can see, the states with the highest percent Hispanic are concentrated in the southwestern part of the United States, specifically New Mexico, California, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. You can see the percentages listed in decreasing order on the left-hand side of the graph. And for example, Texas have the third largest Hispanic population in the country at 39.3%. And you can see, and if you're on actually live on the visual, you can actually dive into each of the specific states and look at county level data as well. Okay? All right, let's talk about my favorite state. Here's the percent Hispanic for the state of Texas. As you can see, the counties in the south and west are the counties with the highest percent Hispanic in the state. The Hispanic population is over 90% in 6 counties: Starr County, Webb County, Zapata, Zavala, and Hidalgo. And as you can see here, they're mostly, of course, concentrated in the southern part of the state. And of course, how can I not talk about Dallas, right? Dallas County, right? So here's the data for Dallas County. Did you know that 40.5% of Dallas County is Hispanic origin? It has the 83rd largest Hispanic population in 254 counties. I don't know, I bet you didn't know that, right? 254 counties are in Texas. So it's rising and it's changing. So not only is Dallas, there's a lot of domestic migration happening in the country, right? A lot of people from California and New York are coming in. And so, but also the Latino population as well. Okay, so my last 2 slides, I'm already flashing. You should just give me 1 more minute and I'll be done. It's not moving forward. Can someone move the slide forward for me? Hope I didn't do anything to it. I was just hitting the button. Oh, there we go. Okay, so far we covered data available from the 2020 census. Now we'll cover projections data, because I think this is really important, and I really want to highlight what Claudia was saying. And she's, it's really important to understand this. The slide shows the Hispanic population in millions from 1970, when we first counted Latinos in the country, to 2060. If you look at the light blue bars on the left side of the graph, these bars represent census counts from 1970 and to 2020. In 1970, the Hispanic population in the States was estimated at 9.3 million. And based on our most recent census, as you know, the green bar is at 62.1 million in 2020. This means that the Hispanic population grew by 568% between 1970 and 2020. Tremendous growth. The dark blue bars on the right-hand side are projections of the Hispanic population decades from now. These projections are based on varying assumptions of future fertility, mortality, and net international migration. As you can see here, projected Hispanic population will increase to 111 million by 2060. It's not too far away from here, not too far away. All right, here's my last slide, promise. Actually, not really, but no. This slide shows the same data presented on the previous slide, but it displays it as a percent of the total population. Again, same story. Just wanted to see 4.6% in 1970, and by 2060, about a third of 1 in 3, as Claudia said, will be of Hispanic origin. And these, by the way, are actually typically what we consider our conservative projections. We have a high series, a low series. This is our middle series. If current rates continue, they'll slightly be higher than that, for sure. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I do have another slide called questions, but again, I'll take questions afterwards. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.